For 7 weeks, I kept thinking I was losing my mind. Claude Code felt thinner. Sessions went amnesic. Then, on April 24th, Anthropic confirmed it was real. I run a one-person studio. Claude Code is in almost every loop I have. Shopify theme work. Vercel deploys. Writing this very blog. So when something shifts inside the tool, I feel it within a day or two. Early March. The reasoning got shallower. I would ask for a non-trivial refactor and get a confident-sounding answer that skipped a step. The kind of skip you only catch by reading the diff carefully. Late March. That is when the amnesia started. Deep in a session, narrowing in on a fix, and Claude would suddenly act like it had not seen the last 20 messages. I assumed it was me. I rebuilt my workflows twice. Then, mid-April brought the weirdest one. Responses got clipped. Tool calls felt rushed. Claude would start a thought, fire off a bash command, and never finish the sentence. I joked on a call that Claude was answering in haiku now. That joke turned out to be closer to the truth than I knew. Bias check. I love this tool. I sell a product called Claude Blueprint. Bug 1, March 4th, 2026. Anthropic switched the default reasoning effort in Claude Code from high to medium. The goal was to cut latency, make the tool feel snappier. They now say that trade-off was wrong. This one stings because it is the most defensible of the three. Latency matters. Slow tools get abandoned. I have made the same call on smaller scales, choosing speed over depth and regretting it later. But coding is not a domain where you can cut reasoning depth quietly. The model needs to walk through edge cases, reconcile imports, think about side effects. Medium reasoning produces code that compiles and looks reasonable, but quietly skips checks a senior engineer would never miss. The kind of bug you find at 11 p.m. on a Friday because a deploy failed. Here's what I take from this. Defaults are not a small UX decision in AI tooling. The default reasoning level of a coding assistant is a product position. If your product is, this thinks like a careful engineer. Lowering the default reasoning is changing the product. Users do not see that change in a changelog. They feel it as, the tool got dumber. There is a measurement problem hiding inside this too. If your internal benchmarks pass at medium, the change looks safe. But benchmarks rarely capture the long-tail tasks solo developers throw at the tool. Refactoring a tricky reducer is not a benchmark task. It is exactly where missing depth shows up first. Bug 2, March 26th. A change shipped that caused Claude Code to continuously discard its own reasoning history mid-session. In practice, the model would do a chunk of work, drop the reasoning, and on the next turn, rederive context from scratch, sometimes badly. From my seat as a user, this looked exactly like a forgetful, erratic model. From inside the system, it was the model rebuilding state every few turns, burning tokens to do it. Anthropic flagged a specific consequence I did not expect. This drained users' usage limits faster than usual. Retries and rederivations were happening invisibly. So the bug had two costs at once. Quality went down because the reasoning was thrown away. Quota went down because the system kept paying to recreate it. I felt this. Several days in late March, I hit my limit far earlier than the workload justified. I assumed I was just running heavier sessions. Now I know my sessions were running heavier without me asking them to. Lesson: a bug in a stateful AI loop does not just degrade output, it compounds. If you build anything that maintains state across turns, monitor not just final answers but the cost of getting there. Usage curves are leading indicators. And worth noting, the API was untouched the whole period. The bugs lived in the Claude Code harness, the wrapper around the model. The model itself was fine. Quick break. Then we get to the funniest one. Bug 3 is a system prompt that put Claude on a 25-word leash. Bug 3, April 16th. Anthropic added a system prompt instruction that capped responses to 25 words between tool calls. The goal was probably to keep the model action-oriented in agentic loops. The result: Claude code that could not explain itself. For tightly scoped tool use, 25 words is fine. Run this command, read this file, move on. For real engineering work, 25 words is a gag order. The model cannot lay out a plan, cannot weigh two approaches, cannot tell you why it is about to refactor a function. It just acts. I notice this most when debugging. I would ask, "Why is this failing?" and get 4 words and a tool call. The tool call would do something, then 4 more words. It felt like working with someone who had been told not to talk. I stopped trusting the actions because I could not see the reasoning behind them. Anthropic reverted the cap on April 20th, 4 days after shipping it. That is fast, and it is the right call. But 4 days is enough to ruin a sprint, especially for solo developers. I lost most of one workday chasing a phantom bug in my own code that turned out to be Claude refusing to explain a build break. The lesson I am taking into my own products: any change to a system prompt is a product change. It deserves the same review as a UI change. If you would not silently rewrite a button label, do not silently rewrite the rules the model is operating under. Bottom line: all 3 bugs were fixed by April 20th. The Anthropic API was never affected, only Claude Code. On April 23rd, Anthropic reset usage limits for every subscriber, as a goodwill gesture. On April 24th, they published the engineering post-mortem. They explicitly denied that any of this was intentional nerfing, which had been the loud accusation across forums for weeks. The engineering record now backs the denial, even if it costs them a confession to do it. Credit where it is due. Anthropic could have stayed quiet. The nerfing allegations were already loud. A denial would have been easier than a confession. They chose the confession. That is rare, and it is the move that keeps me trusting the tool. Now here is the practical part, for anyone who builds on Claude Code. Lock in working setups. Save your prompts, your context patterns, your subagents, your hooks. When the platform drifts, you want a known good baseline you can rebuild from in an afternoon, not from memory. Trust is built one post-mortem at a time. This was a good one. Full write-up is on the RAXXO lab. Link below. If you want the exact setup I rebuild from when the platform drifts, that is Claude Blueprint. Prompts, subagents, hooks, the whole baseline. You will need it the next time something gets quietly rewired.